So what do you think about Holden?
I love him. He cries a lot.
Straight up, dude.
Luke. Better vocabulary.
I don't know how else to describe it.
All right. And keep in mind, I'm not worried about convincing people as to you need to understand the joys and wonders of Holden, or trying to get people to go, can't you see that there are not any redeeming qualities about this character whatsoever? You believe what you believe. But what are the things that you do like about him, or what are the things that you don't like about him? And certainly keep in mind, you can not like things about him and still like him, or you can like things about him and still go, there's no way I'm going to be friends, let alone acquaintances of this kind of person. So what are like specific things you do like, dislike, and just bounce around?
He's like pretty blunt, just like to the point about things.
Like what, like example coming to mind?
Just like even in the beginning, like his opinion on either like the school and his career, he doesn't really, I don't know, he just kind of gets to the point of his opinion. He doesn't try to make it sound better than it is.
Okay. I don't disagree. I would say I'd throw a little kind of but phrase to the end of it. He is very straightforward and blunt about his opinions. I'm a terrific liar, or I'm a terrible liar. Something that he says, meaning that good at it or do it all the time. But the majority of what you are reading are his what? Thoughts, as opposed to what he is actually saying. So I do think when you think about a person's thoughts, they probably will be a little bit more straightforward and brutal, blunt, honest, as opposed to what a person really says. Having done it, I've always been tempted to take the book and just get the highlighter and highlight what he actually says versus what he thinks. And that would probably make for an interesting contrast, because I think a lot of the folks that he does talk to probably view him, if not favorably, semi-favorably. But if they were to know everything that he's thinking, that viewpoint might change. Now, I don't think that's any different, though, from you and I. Based on conversations that Kaylee has with Lexi, she's okay. But if we knew every single thing that was going on in that head of hers, there might be a little bit more space in between those seats, and then she could request a change. So, certainly when it comes to thoughts versus, words or actions, there could be a little bit of a change. Now, him calling Maurice a moron, that's a pretty straightforward, statement, and probably not a smart one based on what happened thereafter. Aiden, you had?
I said that he, even though he's goofy a lot of the time, there are times when he's just like randomly goofy. Whenever he was with his roommate in the bathroom and he was shaving, and he just like
And like when Stralader's shaving, he's horsing around more so. Now they actually do get a little bit of a fight taking place, which again does not end well for him. Afterwards with the whole room after the Alley's baseball mitt composition that takes place. But yeah, I forget who said he cries a lot. Maybe Shelby was the one who mentioned that. Yeah, he'll go from tears. Could be going to ecstasy. Could be going to not the drug. Could be going to questioning things, very deep and thoughtful, to very trivial. This really isn't important at all.
I was just gonna say he's very emotional.
Good way, bad way, or just he's emotional?
He cries a lot.
I only cried once.
No, he cried a few times.
He cried after he punched him,
He cried?
Who, him?
with Maurice.
After Maurice, he's definitely in tears.
Yeah.
After the fight with Stradlater, he's in tears. Which he's kind of surprised, because a whole bunch of sleep tight morons. Moving forward, he's also going to get emotional at different points. The tough thing certainly with him is it's not a good week for him right now, which is probably going to make him to certainly being susceptible to being more emotional. You're going to take someone at a low point, and this is probably one of his low points, you are going to be more emotional. But when probably more emotional than what he would like most people to think he would be, as Not that he's a rough and tough 16-year-old, but probably wants to come off as maybe being a little bit more stoic. Michelle?
He seems to like rely a lot on his emotions because he like didn't want to talk to Jane because he wasn't in the mood yet. He wanted to talk to his sister, but everything has to like be in a certain kind of has to be a certain kind of mindset.
Jane has to be in the mood or mindset to talk to Sally. You mentioned sister with Phoebe. And the question, I guess, that not that we know an answer to it right yet, is it that he needs to be in the right mood, frame of mind to speak to these people, or is he trying to come up with an excuse not to speak to these people? I'm just not in the mood to do my homework yet. You know, I'm not in the mood to do the reading assignment. I'm not in the mood to go to work. I'm not in the mood to get dressed for work today. I ironed these last night to make sure they were. No, I didn't. So yeah, is it getting in that right frame of mind, or is it an idea that he needs an excuse, which is something we can look at, Elena?
Oh, I think he's a compulsive liar.
That's not a strength.
Well, he says anything.
When does he lie? I mean, really?
Whenever you're talking to his people all the time.
Whenever he opens his mouth. What are some other names of his?
John Steele.
Jim Steele.
Jim Steele.
That R.
When he's on the train. Rudolph Schmidt, you know, who's actually the janitor and all that kind of stuff. When he's talking to Mrs. Morrow on the train, what is he going to have to? He has a big trip coming up.
He has like a brain
He
tumor.
has the brain tumor. Yeah, brain tumor. When he's speaking to Sonny, he has an issue with his clavichord, which is not a real, body part or anything like that. Yeah, we all love your son. He's a wonderful guy. Yet, he's the phony moron who's snapping his towel at guys as they're coming out of the bathroom and all that kind of stuff when he's talking to Mrs. Morrow. Age is something that comes up all the time. I'm 22, and Sonny goes like, "Fun you are." So yeah, there's certainly a lot of truth not being dispelled. Are there any times when you think he is brutally honest, or when he would actually be speaking, or haven't really come to that moment yet? If we do.
Well, he called Maurice a moron.
Okay.
So just be honest.
That was pretty honest there. Anything else? Not just about him being a compulsive liar, but in general.
He's not very confrontational. Like when he was saying that if someone stole his gloves, he'd probably go up to them and he wouldn't really call them out for it, but he'd say, "Why are my gloves in your room?" He wouldn't get mad about it.
Yeah, are you calling me a thief? No, I'd probably just say, well, can I have them back or whatnot. So he may confront people, but it's not going to be fisticuffs taking place. A little bit more of a pacifist. Non-confrontation. But there are exceptions to it, Maurice and things like that. Carol?
He cares really deeply about people. You can see when he talks about his sister and Jane, and even actually, if you notice, I hate this kid, but still invites him to go to movies and stuff.
And still, depending on what's going on, might miss people at the same time. If you started mentioning folks that he cares deeply about, you said Jane, was it Phoebe, sister that you mentioned? I'd probably add one more.
I mean, it's not another person, but even just going off that when he went to the park to look for Phoebe, he was offering to take one girl, going to get her hot chocolate.
With the ice skates and all that kind of stuff, yeah.
Allie.
I'd say Allie I'd probably add to that list as well. Now, I mean, Allie's not present anymore, but before Maurice shows up, he does have conversation with Allie after the whole Sunny episode kind of takes place, and that ends up kind of being a person that he uses as a crutch to fall back on.
Going off of how he cares deeply about people, he's very nostalgic, with Allie and Brady, the composition of his kid.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever he's talking about how he used to go to the museum.
And another thing with Allie, where it's after the episode with Sonny before Maurice shows up, he even tells Allie, "Why don't you come over?" Remember where? I don't have to use the name, but you can tell he feels fairly upset about. I hear a whole lot of. I can't decipher what any of that stuff. Luke, what were you saying?
Someone's house that he tells me.
Yeah, you can go to Bobby's house and you can bring your bike because Allie always wants to go with him. Allie's 3 years younger than he is at the time, 2 years younger, excuse me, and he never lets him go. So Bobby's house, that memory, there's certainly some nostalgic going on there, or nostalgia. And you could certainly also say that there's probably nostalgia for what other person of those three that we have listed. Yeah, a lot of things are going back also with Jane as well. What else? Reactions, things in general? Or then Michelle will come over to you.
He wasn't super focused, so if he was going to the museum, he sort of went off on this tangent about where he was as a kid, and he sort of came back to well, anyway.
Mm-hmm. So his thought process in general. Would you say scattered? Okay, easily distracted. And again, because it is so many thoughts, I'm not sure where your minds are going, but that could very well be something that we all kind of deal with. I know I'll be focused on one thing and then something else takes place and all of a sudden there's a shift in attention or focus.
You like to see when the black sheep in the family.
We don't really know a whole lot about the family.
Compared to the 18-year-old.
What do we know about his family? That's pretty important. He did the hamster arm.
He said that most of his family are atheists.
Which you kind of wonder, just because of who he is, how is he exaggerating that or not? That's kind of a question you always have to ask. What do we know about anybody?
We know that for one, Allie died, and then after that, his mom was never really remembered.
Anyone recall a timeline? Like how long ago this happened? Almost. 3 years ago. Allie dies 3 years ago in 1946. Tells us it's July. I believe it's the 18th. So that's 3 years ago. It's 1949. Therefore, Christmas time, almost 1950. Holden was 13 when Allie dies. So Holden, therefore, when this is all going on, would be 16. What else?
He's not the smartest one. They're all really smart.
Okay, and he mentions that Allie is really smart, Phoebe is really smart, you'd love her if you ever get to meet her kind of thing. He claims that he is not smart. Again, that's something where is that excuse getting built in, or is he really just not that smart? So we know we got Phoebe, who's a younger sister. Anyone know an age? She's 10. So you got Holden is 16. Allie's age when he dies. Not 13. Holden's 13. He's 11. He's like 2 years younger. So Allie's 11. Phoebe's 10. DB, we don't know an age for him. He's in California. And what's the term that he uses for what DB's doing? And he's not being serious. DB is not a prostitute. DB is not like Sonny or anything like that. What is DB? He is a writer. So DB is prostituting himself. He really means that he is selling his talent. If he's in Hollywood as a writer, he's probably this is what they do in Hollywood. They make movies. He's probably a screenwriter. And there tends to be a little bit of a disconnect between traditional writers, authors, and screenwriters, because what happens to books when they turn into movies? They get changed, and liberties are taken. Salinger does not sell his scripts to Hollywood. He did it one time. The title got changed. The whole concept of the story got changed. Salinger as a writer cannot stand Hollywood whatsoever. So him going, he's prostituting himself, more of like, kind of selling his soul, his talent, so to speak.
Was that prior to this book?
Yes, prior to the publication of this book. It's shortly after the war. I want to say 1946. DB, he does throw in one other little detail after he runs into Lillian Simmons and her new boyfriend at the bar, that DB did serve in there's not too many big global conflicts taking place at this time besides he mentions DB was involved in D-Day in World War II. So we don't know an exact age for him, but we know he would be older, probably more of a contemporary age of what Salinger would be at the time. So he's probably, around 25, between 25 and 30, or at least 20 to 30. No, he'd be, at least 25 to maybe 30. Parents, we don't know a whole lot about. So, yeah, he does seem to kind of lack direction at this point, at least compared to DB. DB has a career. The nice thing about Phoebe is you're a 10-year-old, you don't have to have responsibility yet. And certainly Allie's situation is going to be very different, where he's not going to be held to, standard due to, leukemia and what happened. Where's Holden? Like, now. Nope. He'll go to a museum, like talks about museum, like, before the date with Sally, but that's not where he is. And if you recall, I mentioned about, I think on Friday, I said to you guys, maybe take a look at page 1 again. He's in some kind of institution, whether mental hospital, some kind of facility. On page 1, like chapter 1, page 1, where you really want to hear about it, go into whole childhood and all that kind of stuff. About halfway down the page, I'll just tell you about this madman stuff that happened to me around last Christmas, just before I got pretty run down and had to come out here and take it easy. I mean, that's all I told DB about, and he's my brother and all. He's in Hollywood. That isn't too far from this crummy place, and he comes over and visits me practically every weekend. He's going to drive me home when I go home next month, maybe. He just got a Jaguar, one of those little English jobs that can do around 200 miles an hour. So we don't know precisely where he is at, but it's certainly not New York City. He's more West Coast somewhere. So when it does come to Holden and him being one of the first things that got mentioned is, moody, emotional. At present time of the text itself, he is going to be in some kind of mental facility. So he's not 16, he's actually, comes after 16. Yeah, he's 17 at this point, but this is kind of like Heart of Darkness in a way, framing his tale. Everything that's going on is essentially one big flashback for him, which means he's probably talking to some kind of therapist, some kind of doctor, psycho, analyst or whatnot, but he's basically telling you about everything that happened that caused him to spiral, quote unquote, out of control. Which does kind of change the lens a little bit. I mean, it certainly is going to make sense then that there could be some issues that might be taking place, might be going back and forth with emotional tendencies and things of that nature. What is probably going to be the main cause for it? Stemming from, I would agree, depression. Probably is going to have something to do with Allie's death. What are things that we know happened to Holden shortly after Allie dies, like that night? By punching out all the windows in the garage. He spends the night sleeping in there. We don't know what happens to him afterwards. He'll go into some little bit of details later on. We don't know though if he's in a hospital long term afterwards, if he's seen any kind of guidance counselor, things of that nature. Chances are probably not a whole lot, and a lot of that is certainly going to stem from. Keep in mind for like his parents and whatnot, the idea is you need to be able to take care of yourself. You're either going to be a man or a boy. that whole adolescent aspect's not going to be there. You're dealing with a generation that lived through World War I, lived through the Great Depression, lived through World War II, so when times get tough, you get tough and deal with it. So there probably would certainly not be that same perspective. Now, I think it would be a little bit of oversimplification to go, well, it's all because Allie has died that he's dealing with this. I think Allie certainly is the impetus, the cause for it, but what's probably his most favorite word to throw around when it comes to people? Met this guy, Jack. He's a total phony. What concepts, whether you think related to Allie's death or separate, so phoniness being one of them, would be things that might trouble Holden. Maybe trouble's not the right word, but make him unhappy, make him upset with people, things that he's going to take kind of seriously. Be problematic in some way. So phoniness, which we don't really know what that means yet at this point. And the other ideas. Seems to. Okay. But yeah, so they're not going to be true to themselves. What is truth? Hayden, hand went up. Was Hayden,
Yeah.
or yeah, Hayden. Aiden, was that you?
Yeah.
I'm combining.
I was gonna say that whenever he comes across all these different people, he starts to like say that he starts getting depressed. Whenever he starts thinking about like whenever he like puts himself in their shoes and relating to
Who are a couple people that he genuinely seems to like, but he still feels depressed about them? And this is closer to the end of part that we've read. Yeah, the nuns, and feels bad, about the things that they have to do. He's happy they're not judging him because he mentions Catholics always want to know if you're a Catholic or not, and has the conversation about Romeo and Juliet, but doesn't like the kind of suitcases that they would have to have and carry around and things like that. So he gets depressed when thinking about others and what they have gone through. He certainly seems you're waiting for him to scroll back up here. Go see who, since she's right there. If this person means so much, why not go talk to her if you just have to go right down the stairwell to see her, but I'm not in the mood, not feeling like it. And so that's something that we're certainly going to take a look at with him probably more so tomorrow. Michelle was asking about dates, like when the screenwriting and all that kind of stuff. I think it's 46. 45 is when Holden first shows up in print. There's a story called I'm Crazy, which actually him talking to Mr. Spencer is most of the story. Salinger does check himself into mental hospital after World War II to deal with all the conflicts that he saw. So we'll kind of talk about that aspect of it